Hey guys, so I'm trying to work on our CSS Grid assignment, and my internet's being a little wonky. So I'll be going kind of back and forth when a page actually loads. I'll pause this video and go back to that, and in the meantime, I'll just go ahead and get started in the video. So I know everybody's pretty much been using Chrome. I believe so, anyways, for our practicing and our testing, and that's fine. But I want us to, for this purpose, for CSS Grid, because I like the tools in it a little bit better for Grid. I want us to go to Firefox Developer. Just Google that. And then Firefox Developer Edition. And somewhere there should be a download button that'll appear. But I want you to download this browser, wherever, I'm assuming it might be this. Wait for all the images to appear. So the dev tools is what I like about, and it's for CSS Grid, which is why we're going to be using Firefox for while we're practicing the CSS Grid. I think you click here to download it. Hopefully it doesn't start a download from that. So I already have it. Somewhere, once all my images load and everything that should load on this page, there should be a download button for you to download Firefox. And, or like I said earlier, I already have it downloaded. So this is what I've been working on for our practice. And what's nice about Firefox, in no terms to Firefox is a good browser. I mean, if you want to completely change everything you're doing to this Firefox developer browser, that's fine. I have had issues on occasion where whenever I'm creating something for previous classes and I just test it on this and it gets a little wonky on Chrome because I didn't test it for more than this browser. But it was kind of few and far between. And if you like the dev tools in here, or just want to go back and forth because you like certain dev tools in one browser versus another, those are the kind of decisions and choices you'll be making as a developer. I was reading some of the comments that you guys had from the What's Hard About Web Dev podcast. And one of the things that you mentioned that you guys caught on to the fact was that, so many different browsers, so many different screen sizes, so many different variances you have to try to accommodate for. But Firefox Web Dev developer browser is one that I like for Grid. So you can see, I have several grids here where I've been practicing and we'll be going over together. So if I click on, I have div grid container, and then there's just the numbers go up 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the different CSS grids that I have right now. And so this one is checked. And if I hover over the little square, you can see, if I click on it somewhere, there we go. You can actually see on the big screen the display says row 2, column 2. I can't really hover over it without losing it. But in this particular area, you'll see that it does say row 2, column 2. So that kind of helps. I know it's kind of easy to see on your own, but it gives you some good information on your grid. And let's see. So let's click on this other one. So we have a div grid container 2, and you'll see that there's a gap in between. It's called the gutter gap, gutter, something like that, gap. And that's one of the things that we'll be practicing as well. So you can see that there's a gap in between. Let's see. So let's go to 3. Okay, you can see there's different sizes. 4. Again, you can see the different sizes. And 5. Oops. So we got a little bit more of this is more of a centered align, which is what we're playing with. So there's like a big old padding up above because it's vertically aligned. So that's something that we'll be going over more. And this is a handy little tool whenever you're trying to figure out placement on something. And if something doesn't want to go right to, when you're putting content in it, like I have content, a little bit of content in here, it's not going where you think it should be. This could be a way to kind of help figure out where you're going wrong. Okay. So let's see where I'm at on everything else. So it looks like this, well, not everything is loading, but somewhere along this page, you'll see a download. It might be this particular button. I don't want to hit it because I'm afraid it did. It started the download. Cancel. So it's that button right there. Go away. Some of the resources, I'm not going to create a Word document like I have been in the past few weeks because I like the resources that's in W3 Schools. And CSS Tricks is another really good website to just kind of look at and play with and learn about more about CSS. I don't know if we'll be doing a whole lot of that as a resource, and probably more CSS Schools, which doesn't want to load. Okay. So this, there's only 3 little parts. It's CSS Grid, Grid Intro, Grid Container, and Grid Item. I'm not going to be going over every single one of these things. I'll just be going over a few. Grid it helps you with the placement of where you put certain things on your website, which we'll be going for in the Hawking College bookstore page, and as we also incorporate some SVG in Canvas. So there's multiple ways that you can use Grid. I'm trying to get back into here. Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. So what is Grid? So you guys have all used spreadsheets of some sort of capacity, whether Excel or Google spreadsheets or whatever it's called. Spreadsheets, you kind of think of Grid as spreadsheets. You have rows and columns. And where you have a particular item, you can tell between if something is in the very top row in the very left corner, it's called cell A1. So you can think of it like that. If something is in a different kind of column, then it's if it's in the next column over, still row 1, it's B1. So think of Grid. All Grid is just a bunch of columns and rows. You can just specify how many columns and rows. You can specify the size of them, and you can specify the content in it. Whenever I use CSS Grid for creating something, and just to be 100% honest in how I do it, I literally just finds a tool like this and whatever has a format that I like, and I copy the style. I don't change anything here, mix up maybe the colors or whatever, however many columns, something like that. But other than that, I don't change the class name. Like I said, I might change some aesthetics of it, and then I copy this, which is the content that goes into the actual body part, and then I just customize it for what I want. Grid is not that hard of a thing to get used to. Sometimes it can be frustrating when you try to do something a little bit more in depth with it, but it just takes practice, like with everything else. But let's see. So I am going to, so this is what I've been practicing with, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new file for the tutorial that I'm doing right now. So file, save. What was I doing? Shoot. Oh yeah, CSS Grid tutorial.html. So I do the image stuff, shift, exclamation point, and it does that wonderful stuff, so I don't have to type it in. And I'm going to just change the title to CSS Grid. And we're going to add some styling. So we'll go ahead and open up some style. We're doing some, if I can spell style. There we go. So we're going to do some internal styling. And like I mentioned a little bit ago, whenever I'm needing to create a grid, I just literally just copy that, which is my style. And the goal on whenever you're doing anything, learning anything new with code or any kind of new tool or trick or anything of that, you don't have to memorize it. I don't remember this stuff. I always muck it up. And until I've done it like 50 times within a couple weeks, I will know it. But until then, I just don't. And because it's in my for me, it's not that imperative that I learned how to do this from memory. I know I can have a resource to figure out how to do that. And I got other things that I'm more worried about studying and learning, um, without having the cheat sheet. So, so I go down in here and I copy the div where it's got the class container and the grid items. Then I take this into the body. Okay. So what we've done before, whenever we want to see a preview, if I open this, open live with live server, it's going to take me to Chrome because that's just how it's default on mine. And that's fine. I don't want to necessarily change that default, and I don't really know how without looking it up. So, but I don't want to. I want to keep my default Chrome because that's just how I want it. But, I still want to look at this stuff in Firefox. So I can go into my folder, wherever you have this file that you created, and right click on it, open with, and this should appear after you download Firefox Developer Edition. Click on that, and then you'll see it. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one. And you'll see it. So you see the grid that you created. So let's go over that grid. Okay. So you'll see that we have two classes here. One is grid container. The other one is grid item. And you can see the classes that we have here: grid container and then grid item. So all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's the content as you saw in there, 1, 2, 3, 4 through 9. And so each of these grid items have the characteristics of what's in here. Okay. This class of grid container is what makes a grid a grid. And the important thing here is the display grid, which is one of the things I never remember until I look it up. So what grid template columns does, you see where it says auto, auto, auto. So what it does is it auto fits based off how much room we have in our window, in our browser window. So if I make it smaller, you can see it's automatically adjusting in size. It's 1/3 by 1/3 by 1/3 of the size of the window. If I change this to, instead of being auto, say something like 20 pixels, and then everything else auto, I have to refresh whenever you're doing Firefox, because I didn't open it with a live server. I have to actually refresh. And yeah, you can see the 1, 4, and 7 for the first column. But I don't like that, so I'm going to undo that. So you can see the background color. I can change that background color to whatever I want. Badass. And again, I have to hit refresh when I'm in Firefox. So the background color's changed. And okay. So you can see all the changes that I'll be making with that. Anyways, so and in here in the content, we can put whatever we want. Let's put shirts, boots, gear, pants, whatever. And hit refresh again. I just want to keep it, the same kind of format, just change the content. If I want to get rid of some of these, because I don't need all these rows, and just comment them out, hit save. It's still give me 3 across, but I only have 4 items. So what it does, it automatically goes back to the left-hand side, like kind of like when you're reading, and wraps around, and then it has nothing here. And what you could have done if you wanted to have the blocks, but even if there's no content, oopsie, you can shoot. Take out any kind of content there, and then refresh it, and the blocks are back, but there's no content. So it kind of depends on what your purpose is. Let's see. What happens if I change background color to white, which I think is FFF, maybe? Yeah, And if I change this to background color to white, okay, so if it's white, you can see my grid lines. What if I change my grid item line, take out the border? Just comment it out and refresh the page. Okay, you can't see that there's a table, which is the grid, but it's still has all the structure. So grid is a way that you can customize the layout, have some more control of the layout as opposed to things like float and some other ones that I don't remember. So that's kind of what grid does. So like I said, the important thing for grid is it has to have a display grid. We're not going to go over inline grid. And like I said, I'm not going to go over all the little things that you can do with grid. Just want to go over the basics of it. And as you need it, you're aware that it exists, and then you can learn more about how to apply it for your specific needs. So let's go over grid gap. So columns and rows. So it's made up of columns and rows, like I said, similar to a spreadsheet. But now there's gaps. So we can put some custom gaps in there. So let's put some custom gaps in there. So we'll just go ahead and give me some, make sure I kind of stay in my place. Container 1, okay. And now I'm going to do another one of, just going to take one out on that. Comment. So this is grid with gaps, what we're going to be going over. And for grid gap is what I want right now. So we can adjust the gap size by using one of the following properties. Some of this has been updated, and I'll show you that here in just a second, but let's start with grid gap. So you can see here in the snippet that they have grid container, the display of grid, because that's required, telling it it's going to be a grid. And the grid column cap, we're not going to do that. We're going to do with grid gap. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do is create another bit of a styling, just so we can play with different things. And want to do grid container. You can name this whatever you want. It's a class name. As long as you follow the rules with the class name, you'll be fine. But the grid container is a pretty descriptive way of naming your container, so that's what I'm going to stick with. So as required, you need a display of grid. Then you need grid template columns. We're going to do grid. We're going to kind of copy off this grid template columns. And I'm going to do some customization. I'm going to do auto, 40 pixels, and auto. And then we're going to do background color of yellow. We're going to do padding of, I don't know, let's do 10. And then we're going to do grid gap. I want to do 20 pixels. So we got that there, but now we need to put the content. So I'm just going to copy this again. And I'm going to change my class to match this, because right now it's the exact same. It should be the exact same, but I don't want it to be the exact same. So I'm going to put 2, because this was the name of the class up here. Save it, and it should be different. There we go. So it's yellow. So the column attributes, the sizes was auto, 40 pixels or whatever I put, and then auto. Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and change this back to auto, just so it fits better. And refresh it. You see automatically adjust. So the grid gap, let me go ahead and for my first grid here, I want to put the columns back and stuff so you can see what the gaps actually do. So I'm going to put my borders back and put the color to badass again. I can spell it. And refresh it. Okay. So the gap, you see the gap between this, like the shirts and the pants and the shirts and the boots, where this one doesn't. It's just right up against each other. So that's the gap. You can make it whatever size you want. Make it to 50. And when I refresh it, it's larger. You can also, let's take out the grid gap and let's do column gap. So W3 schools, it says grid column gap. If you start typing that in, you'll see that it's marked out, and if you go down to it, you see its property is obsolete, avoid using it. It specifies getter between grid columns replaced by column gap property in these particular browsers. So instead of doing grid column gap, we're going to do column gap. And I want to do, let's see, 20 pixels. And let's see, save that. What does it look like? So now there's no more gap in between the first and second row. Now there's just a gap in between the columns. And say I want to do row gap. If I do, what was it again? Grid, row, gap, same thing. Oh, shoot. It's obsolete. Avoid using it. But I wonder if it would work. Just because something's obsolete doesn't mean it doesn't work. Just means you shouldn't be using it. It still works. But we're not supposed to. So now I'm getting my curious mode. What if I do grid gap, row gap, and then row gap of 50 pixels? Which one's going to win? The 50 pixels, because could be because it's after the grid row gap, which is I would suspect that's it. But if we change the order, it's smaller again. So the reason this one, it goes by the order. So the browser's reading this one, we're doing the row gap, and now it's reading this one. Oops, we're doing row gap again. So even though it's obsolete, it still works. Just don't use it. There we go. Let's see what else we covered here. So we got gaps, grid lines. So the lines in between are called the lines. Let's see. So we can place things in particular order. So what if, let's go ahead and click on that. What if we wanted a particular item just to take up the first 2 columns, but, for this particular, like number 1 is here. So, our style, let's see. So it's a grid, that's fine. We got the auto, 3 autos, which is good. This is what we have here. No differences there. Grid gap, no differences there. Background color, no differences there. Padding. Background container div, or I'm sorry, grid container under a div. That's something they did differently. So looks like it's just another styling. Background color, text align, so it's saying that it wants to be aligned. The padding, okay, nothing really on that. And then item, so we're saying this is where we say we want the grid column to start, 1, which is right here. And we want it to end at 3, which means like right before 3. So let's go ahead and make a new style, new class, grid container 3. And we are going to do display grid as necessary, grid template, columns, auto, background color, pink, padding, small padding, right? 15 pixels. And grid gap, do 15 pixels. So this is called grid container 3. So I'm going to go down here and we're going to play with, oops, that's not what I wanted. Grid with, what's it called again? Start end column with column start and end. So go ahead and copy this. And this is 3 now. Go back in here and refresh it. Okay, there it is. So we got our grid. It's got the gap. It's got some padding. It's got all that stuff. So what we were wanting for our grid item, so we're going to actually need to create a new grid item as well, which is right here. So I'm just going to copy this down. And just to match this for 3, I'm going to rename this 3 as well. And what we want is grid column start at 1, and then grid column end at, it's going to span 2 columns. Even though that's 1 and 3, it goes up right up to 3, but does not include 3. So grid item 3 is the name of this. So let's go down here. Grid item 3. So shirts should span 2 columns. It does. So shirts spans 2 columns. Boot is kicked over to column 3, and you can see all of that. Let's see. We can do also the same thing with a gear, and let's see what happens. So that's 3. Save it. There we go. What happens if we do it with boots? Save it. Okay, so it just starts it at 1, even though it was right here. We're telling it to start at 1. So what if we created another grid item? So I'm going to copy that. Oopsie. And I wanted to go from starting on column 1, and I want to go to 4, which goes up to 4, but does not include 4 because 4 doesn't exist, and we're wanting to expand the whole full width. Oh, so I didn't rename it. So see, that's why it automatically did, because I did not rename it. Let's do 3 V1, V2. I don't know, I'm trying to get creative here. So grid item 3, version 2. And let's see. So what if I wanted pants to be across the whole entire thing? So 3v2 and refresh. And pants is across the whole entire thing. Shirts, boots, and gear are just the first two columns. Okay. Let's see. So let's do something similar. Go ahead and copy that, but with the rows. With column, row, start and end. We're going to make this container 4. We'll edit these in a little bit, but let's go ahead and start playing with this a little bit with the rows because we've been doing columns. So grid container. So now we're going to be 4, and I don't know if we'll use this or not. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it. So want to make the color, I don't know, Alice, let's see, Alice blue. And so I've been just declaring the size of my columns. The grid template rows. It works very similar to the columns, except it's just rows instead of columns. So if I want a first column or first row to be 30 pixels, and I can do auto. There's a way you can do repeat, but I can't remember. So we'll just do that. And okay, so let's see. Did I get everything saved? Okay. So here is, if you can see it, well, we'll play with the DevTools here a little bit. The first row is 30 pixels and everything else is auto. Okay, so just as you customize the size of the columns, you can customize the size of the rows. And say I want, let's see, where I want it to start in my rows. Shoot. Grid, row, start. I want it to start in row 2. And grid, row, end. I want it to go up to 4, but not including 4, so it's 2 and 3. It should be 2 and 3 columns or rows. And, oh, I didn't give it anything. So grid item 4. So let's go ahead and change gear. So gear starts on row 2. Let me fix my rows a little bit because I'm getting confused. Let's go ahead and make that segue into the DevTools because I'm getting a little confused here. So right now we're in this one. There we go. So there's row 1, column 1. There's row 2, column 1. Okay, so what looks like this is row 3. So the size of my rows, I think I just need to change the size of my rows. So row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, 5, 6. Okay. So let's play with that. Let me just go ahead and change the size of my rows. And just go ahead and make this auto like everything else is. And refresh it. Okay. So, okay. Shirts is going across 2 columns, which is fine. That's my second row. Row 3. Now I'd set at auto, so I wonder if there's something in there That's got it kind of being smaller. So let's see where I got everything placed. Maybe I played with it so much that I kind of mucked it up. So I'm just going to get those back all into default. Okay. There we go. That's better. So you can see on this that how row 2 and row 3. So if I gave row 3, actually, because it's set out for auto. So what if I gave, because when it's auto and there's 0 content in it, then it's not going to have anything. It's going to be auto, whatever the default size is. So what if I actually gave all of this, maybe, let's see. Let's say I did 50 pixels, 50 pixels, 50 pixels, 50 pixels. I have to remember how to do the repeat. Okay. Yeah, that's a little bit better because now you can see that there's row 2 and the cell itself does span. It's got that little gutter in it, which can be deceiving, thinking that you don't have, um, it's not combined, but it is, because if you look at the big white area, it is combining the rows, but there's still a gutter. So if I got rid of the gutter, might be able to see a little bit better. So where's my gutter? Oh, gap. Sorry, gap. Take that out and refresh it. Okay, and that's a little bit better. You can see that it's still, but now the gap's gone because I took it out. But you can see how it brings, you can have one cell cover multiple columns and multiple rows, which is the point of this whole practice. Okay, so what else to cover? Click next. So grid container. So we've already played with the template columns. We've already played with the rows. Justify content, we're just gonna bypass that. The align, okay, let's go ahead and play with that. Okay, so where are we at? We're in styles. So go ahead, copy from grid container to grid item. Actually, I'm just going to copy grid container. I don't know if it'll be playing with grid item. We'll see. And it's going to be 5. I'm going to go ahead and put the grid gap back. So uncomment that. What color do I want this to be now? Line. Well, let's do line. Boom, 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 boom. So we're in grid container 5. Let's go ahead and copy this. And what was it we're going to go over again? Oh, the center, the align center. This is 5. And I'm going to go ahead and uncomment this. Go ahead and get some more content in there. So let's see what we got right now. So hit refresh. Okay, so you see it's I still have that row spanning 2 different rows, which is fine for right now. All my spacing, my styling went down to the bottom. Not quite sure how that happened. Grid item. Let's go ahead and put the grid item back. I'm not sure what I did on that. Sometimes you play with something too much and then you make a mess of it. Okay, so 5. Say I want the background color to be black this time. And I want the color of my font, which is color, to be white so you can see it. And I want this to be line again. We'll do line. So, let's see. Excellent center. So it's what? So grid item 5. So we need to go back down here. Change this to 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Oops, not 54. 5, 5, 5. Save it. Let's see what we got now. There we go. So, okay, it is line and center, I think. What did I do? Good. Let's take out this. The rows, unless you know exactly and you have to have some specific parameters of why you should only have so many rows, you're probably not something to overly concerned about unless, like I said, there are specific reasons. Just kind of let it continue to create rows as the need arises. So, okay. Let me show you why that did that though. So hit refresh. Let's go back into our dev tools. So we're in this one here. So you can see there's, how many rows do we have again? We have what? 5 rows? Yeah. So it's kind of sort of in the center considering it's an odd number. So what if we take out and make it just 4 rows of 50 pixels? Okay, so it's in the center within this size right here. So, but I want to go ahead and take this out. And is there anything else we want to change? Oh, this is what's throwing me off too. Okay, knew there was something else I was making the ass. Okay, I don't want the row start and row end on there. So go ahead and take that out. Now let's see what it looks like. Okay, that's better. So it's a grid, more of a grid. What I was trying to get back into. And let's see this content like that. So we're going to do a vertically align. And it says the grid's total height has to be less than the container height. So this is the grid where the squares are. The container is the background blue area. So to make sure that that height, we have to give it a specific height. So let's do height, if I could spell it, do 500 pixels. Okay. Didn't quite do what I wanted to do. Oh, I think I know why. Maybe. Let me think. Let me look at this. Oh, did I do that already? I don't think so. Align, content, center. Okay, now see if that does it. There we go. Okay. So you can see the gap. Like if you needed some styling where you just wanted to have some gap for aesthetics, then you can have that by aligning it in the center. let's see, what else is there? So you can see grid's not that hard. It's just a matter of placement. I say it's not that hard, but I fought with it on more than one occasion just because I was getting impatient and I wasn't paying attention to what I'm doing. You saw me make mistakes here because I wasn't paying attention to what I'm doing. So this is child elements. So a grid container contains grid items, which we've seen here. We got a container named grid container, and we got a class named grid container, and we got a class named grid items. That doesn't have to be named that, but it's easy enough to understand what it is. You can name it whatever you want. You can name it whoop-de-doo-dah. I don't care. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's just you want a name to be representative of what it is. Let's see. By default, a container has one grid item for each column and each row, which we've seen, but the style of the grid so that it can span multiple columns or rows, which we've done that as well. Like here, here, and here. Let's see. So it talks about grid column start. Is that the one that was defunct now? No, it was the gap that was defunct. Okay, this is still good. Let's see. And we can specify. So there's more than one way that you can write how, like we did the start and the stop. Like column start 1, ends at 4, does not include 4. But you can also do it in one single line. So let's look at that. And let's see. So the way you would do this is grid container, display grid. You got what, 6 columns there. Grid gap is 10 pixels, background colors, whatever. The padding's 10 pixels. I'm not going to worry about this. The grid for item 1, which there's only one item 1, it starts on column 1 and ends before column 5. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes up to 5, does not include 5, by 1 through 5, or 1/5. So let's try that. Okay, so I'm going to copy this again. Paste that. So this is going to be 6, 6. And I'm going to change this to orange. And let's see. Copy this. Oopsie. So, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's try this again. Push something again. There we go. Okay. So we're on 6. And let's see. I'm going to change this eventually to 6. I don't think I changed it yet for the grid item. Actually, I'm just going to do 1 after I get all these back to just regular grid items. I'm going to do the boots instead of the shirts. So grid item 6. Let's go. Oh, I already changed grid item 6. Okay, good. So what I can do was, it was talking about, what's a grid column, I think. So I can do, I want it to cover, so I got, let me add some more columns in here. auto. So I got 6 columns. We can do grid column, start with 2, doesn't always have to start with 1, and then I want it to go up to but not include 5. So it should span 2, 3, 4, 3 columns. Semicolon, and let's see what I got here. Gotta refresh the page. Okay, so it's still in the middle, which is fine. I just didn't change that. So my column of boots, it does span. Let's see, that's column. Let's go ahead and do our grid thing here. So that's column 1. So column 2, column 3, column 4. So all of that is this particular cell of boots. Okay. And let's see, there's other ways you can do that. So you can do this so it'll span 3 columns. So what this is going to do is going to start with column 1, column 2, and column 3. So all together, it's going to span 3 columns. It's not starting with column 1, then 1, 2, 3 more. It's all together. It's going to be 3 columns. So let's give that one a go. Copy that. Change this to 7. 7. I want to change this to orange red I saw earlier. And then want to do span 4. Because there was 6 columns. There we go. Now I just need to change this down here after I copy and paste it. This was wrong. With, what was this one? Shoot. Oh, with different way to declare column expansion. I don't know. And this one is going to do with with using span for number of columns. 7, 7. Okay, so span, what was it? What did I say? 2 through 2 span 4. So it's going to include 4 columns, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it includes not column 1, which it shouldn't, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And it doesn't include column 6 because altogether I told it I only wanted to span 4, which is what it did. So what else do we got here? The grid row property, it's very similar. Let's see. Go up to here. Do another one. Okay, copy that. Paste it. So this is going to be 8. 8. And what do I want of this? Let's do pink, like this color pink. Okay. And I'm going to keep that as is. And I'm not going to specify the number of rows yet and see what happens. So where am I at? looking for grid. There we go. So I not going to specify the number of rows right now. See what it does. So one thing I want to go ahead and try to, instead of, because I'm getting a long scroll here. And one of the things that I can do is just clicking on these little arrow and it'll compress what I'm not needing to see right now. Just my scroll is getting a little long here. Is that what I'm on? What am I on? I'm on 8, so I still need to copy it. Okay. So I'm going to copy this. Okay. Grid with another way to declare how many rows to go down, something like that. It's going to be 8. It's going to change from 7 to 8. And I don't think I made the actual changes in the code yet. So it needs to change this to row, starting with row 1, and it's going to go up to, but not including, row 3. And remember, I did not declare how many rows yet because it's commented out. Let's see what it does. So it still doesn't. It just automatically creates the number of rows that I need based off how much content I have, which is good. Unless you need to have specific control of the number of rows for a particular reason, that more than suffices for the purpose. On the wrong one. Get this one. Okay. And same way that you can with the span, it'll do the exact same thing. So now it's expanding one row, 2 rows, and I don't have a 3rd row. So because I don't have any content, I'll force it to make another row. I am going to go ahead and declare how many rows I have and the sizes. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that in there. I got 4 rows. Refresh, and this should work. There we go. So I go row 1, row 2, row 3. So it does expand 3 rows, 1, 2, 3. And then 4, there's nothing because it already spanned as much as I want it. So depending on the purpose and the reasons, and there's all kinds of different things that you can play with grid as to what you need to apply. I think that was pretty much all I wanted to cover on grid. Again, I didn't make, there's another thing you can do with a grid area property. I'm not going to get into that. To me, I find that a little confusing. But you know, that might be something worth knowing in the future, but I'm not going to go into that right at this time. And you can customize the order of items, which kind of goes into another component of how you can use grid. Again, I'm not going to get into these. I just wanted to kind of cover the basics of grid. And I didn't, like I said, I'm not doing the Word document because I think this does a pretty good job of keeping things simple, but you know, you can see the stuff you can play with and has to try it yourself and whatnot. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.